up against the other riders at the front, because it's a year since he won a race.
Alex Lowe's the man who completed the podium in all 3 races of the French round 3 weeks ago. So it took Bimota until the 6th round of their new project to get onto the rostrum, a 2nd place in Misano, and now the 3 third places at Magny-Cours. And Lowe's probably should have been on the podium at Donington Park as well. So with every reason for optimism at present.
Yeah, tough weekend so far for Alex. Had a crash at the end of yesterday's pre-practice 2 session. That's also hampered him this morning. He took away some of the tyre allocation for him into FP3. That meant that we haven't really seen his true pace. He's down there 14th on the combined times. If he lines up on the 5th row of the grid, you'll be very surprised. You're expecting that he'll be able to pull something out in the Superpole session.
Danilo Petrucci hasn't scored less than 20 points at any round this season, and that consistency leaves him 3rd overall, even though he's only notched 7 podiums compared to 13 for Alvaro Bautista. Petrucci didn't look at his best last time out in Magny-Cours, I think it's fair to say, but still came away with 2 4th places and 27 points, gaining another 9 over Andrea Locatelli and 14 over Bautista.
Yeah, and when you look at the season as a whole, it's almost the entire season inside the top 5 for Danilo Petrucci in races. So strong and consistent. A lot of 4th, 5th and 6th place finishes, but when you look at what we've been able to see from him this year, he's been able to make that step and maintain the consistency. It's just about trying to have those podiums and try and have another race win, but ultimately for him it's about trying to just come through in the 2nd row of the grid in this session.
Honda will field a totally revised lineup in 2026. Iker Lecuona's move to Ducati already announced before the visit to Magny-Cours. Xavi Vierge's departure was revealed before the Aragon round. Long linked with an independent Ducati, now appears he's on the verge of signing for Yamaha to replace Jonathan Rea. Yamaha and Vierge have both said separately this weekend they expect to make announcements before we head to Estoril.
Yeah, the talk around the paddock was that one of his big personal sponsors has taken that money to Moto Corsa next year. That's where the rumour about an independent Ducati came from. But ultimately, if you have the choice between being on an independent Ducati or a factory bike, the lure of being a full factory rider is always going to outweigh an awful lot for riders.
Axel Bassani has been given a back-of-the-grid penalty for ignoring yellow flags in pre-practice 2 yesterday. So this upcoming session is effectively meaningless for him.
It is for race 1, but not for the Superpole race, and that's where it becomes important for Bassani to go out there, make sure he gets a good lap in, because that will still be his grid position for tomorrow's 10-lap race.
Yes, and Axel Bassani has made the top 9 in each of the last 2 rounds in that Superpole race, so worthwhile observation there. Just wonder whether his focus will now be on trying to pull something back tomorrow rather than today, which is effectively obliterated. It's always unfortunate when a penalty from a free practice session then hampers an entire day of race competition.
It is, and you can see for Bassani, though, immediately he latches on to Top Rack, Van der Mark and Jonathan Rea for his toe at the start of the session. Axel's very good at being able to understand where he needs to filter in to get that opportunity. And no harm following the #1 bike for any of these riders.
Record for poles here at Motorland Aragon is held jointly by Tom Sykes and Jonathan Rea on 4 apiece. Rea benefited from the Teruel round in 2020 to do a unique double that season. Also took top spot in 2021 and 23 on the Kawasaki, as you can see. 3 different pole sitters in the last 3 years here in Aragon. Our 2 title contenders have both been pole sitters at the Aragon round. Toprak Razgatlioglu was fastest here at the first round of the 2022 season on the Yamaha. Nicolo Bulliger took pole here last year by almost 0.4 of a second. They are your favourites again this morning.
As Sam Lowes came out of the pits there, didn't look like he was too happy about having Iannone on the back of this group as well. But for Iannone, fastest in this morning's session. This is a track that suits his style so well. This is a place where he's obviously got a lot of experience from his Grand Prix career, but this is where a Grand Prix rider really comes into their own. This is why Bautista's always been so strong here, and plenty of other riders. If you're really smooth and consistent and flow from one corner to the next, that's what you need to be strong around this track. It's not a scratchy superbike style track like Most or Cremona or places like that.
Bulliger making his way out onto the circuit. Our pole sitter here last season has added 3 poles this season so far. Off the front row of the grid, that was at Balaton Park, bounced straight back with P2 on the grid at Magny-Cours last time out. Completing the field this weekend, Tommy Bridewell making his 2nd WorldSBK appearance of the season after his wildcard outing at the UK round. He comes in for the Aragon round to replace Iker Lecuona. Bridewell, the 2023 British champion, currently 6th in the BSB standings after their latest round last weekend in Assen. Sam Lowes, only 6th in the championship, but 3rd in the Superpole Awards, averaged only P8 on the grid last season. He's only qualified off the front 2 rows of the grid twice this year. Once again, underlining his significant improvements in 2024.
Yeah, and you're coming to a track where he's had so much success in the past. He'll be expecting in the Superpole session that he can challenge not only for the front row, but try and add to his pole in Assen earlier in the season. But WorldSBK now, the first rider, getting up to speed on his first flying lap. And a decent first sector there from Top Rack, a couple of tenths of a second off what we've seen so far this weekend. But this is the banker lap.
Going back to Sam Lowe, speaking to him yesterday, he said it was a couple of tenths of a second down on the factory Ducatis in the final sector. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on those times here.
Yeah, you're able to break down the sectors into smaller parts as well around some circuits, and Aragon is one of those. What's been interesting is the gap from turn 15 to the speed trap, which is only about 600 meters long. That's where the factory Ducatis of Bautista and Bulaga have a couple of tenths of a second on some of the independent bikes. They have a tenth of a second on Top Rack that we can see here on the number 1 bike.
Top Rack Razgatlioglu, remember, struggled here in Motorland Aragon earlier in his career, qualified 16th in both Aragon rounds on the Kawasaki. Took him until 2022 on the Yamaha to make even the front 2 rows.
I think we're about to see a lap record straight from the get-go from Top Rack as well. The fastest time we've had so far this weekend, a 48.0. He wasn't fast in Sector 1. He's at the fastest Sector 2 and 3 times of all weekend, by quite a margin as well.
Razgatlioglu only 5th on the grid on the BMW here last season on his return from injury at the time. He has been the dominant force in terms of Superpole performances of late. He goes around a tenth of a second away from the lap record set by Nicolo Bulliger for pole here a year ago. And it is provisional pole in 2025 for Top Rack Razgatlioglu. And that's a super lap from Andrea Locatelli to go within a tenth of a second of Top Rack, provisionally on the front row of the grid. Jonathan Ray crosses the line 4 tenths down. He's 3rd at the moment. A few of the big guns, though, still to set their fastest laps. And we've got Alex Lowe's on a good lap at the moment. Andrea Iannone, not a particularly good 3rd sector. That's cost him a lot of time. Bautista and particularly Nicolo Bulliger to watch on the remainder of this lap.
For Top Rack, he struggled in Sector 1 and also in Sector 4 on that fast lap of his. He gave up a bit of lap time. Sector 4, just where we see Lowe's coming through now. This is where the Bimota has tended to be around about half a second off the pace, just for that top speed down the back straight.
Alex Lowe's has qualified on the 2nd row of the grid in each of his last 6 appearances at the Aragon round. Just 1 front row start here in 2016 on the Yamaha. He's back on the 2nd row of the grid here in Aragon this morning. He sits P4. Alvaro Bautista exits the final turn to set his first flying lap. A front row starter in the last 3 Aragon rounds. That's good enough for P6 for him, but he's about to be displaced because Nicolo Bulliger's making his way now off the final turn, driving for the line, chasing his first pole since Misano in June. And Nicolo Bulliger does go provisional pole. It's 3 tenths of a second faster than Top Rack Razgatlioglu, and Bulliger does claim a new lap record here in Motorland Aragon.
What's really impressive for that for Bulliger as well, though, he was only fastest of all in Sector 2, so he's just fast and consistent everywhere else. We'll see what Top Rack can do in the final sector. Gave up around about a quarter of a second to Bulliger on his first flying lap, so we'll see what it is on this lap.
Razgatlioglu up after Sector 3 as he now drives to the line, his 2nd flying lap, and it is a faster time. It narrows the gap, but it's not enough to challenge Bulliger for top spot. 1 minute 47.8184 for Razgatlioglu. Andrea Locatelli still provisionally on the front row of the grid. Axel Bassani just popped himself up into P4 ahead of teammate Alex Lowe's in P6.
Yeah, Bassani was behind Ray out on track there as well, so again, still able to use that second group to be able to put in good lap times.
Decent start to this session for Jonathan Ray. There's a couple of riders who might fancy passing him in the remainder of this session, the likes of Alvaro Bautista, currently 9th, and this man, Sam Lowe's first flying lap was aborted for him on the 2nd flyer. He was a tenth of a second up on Bulliger's time after Sector 1. He's lost a little bit of ground in Sector 3, still might be good enough to challenge for a place on the front row of the grid. Sam Lowe's with back-to-back front row starts in Balaton Park and Manicourt. Fixing 3 in a row for the first time. Exits the final turn and does go P3. Slots himself in ahead of Andrea Locatelli. Bumps him back to 4th. Sits in behind Nicolo Bulliger and Top Rack Razgatlioglu now. Just over a quarter of a second separating the 3.
Yeah, Lowe's able to find a bit of time in that final sector compared to what he's done up to this point of the weekend as well. So with the full Superpole effort and the electronics all dialed up, able to find a little bit more in that final sector compared to what we saw in the free practice sessions. But where we'd expect in terms of the 3 riders on the provisional front row of the grid, but Bulliger's lap time really was impressive.
So it is Nicolo Bulliger who leads the way, 1 minute 47.655 as we come to the end of the opening stint with 8 minutes still to go. Toprak Razgatlioglu 1.5 tenths of a second down in second place, and Sam Lowes, the only rider who's really consistently been able to match them in Superpole sessions this season, sitting directly behind Bulliger and Razgatlioglu in P3. Important for Sam Lowes to get it right on the second lap, had to abort the first lap. But at the second time of asking straight up onto the front row of the grid. And
the important thing being able to get that banker lap time in to make sure you've got something to really play with some house money in your second run.
Bulliger with a stunning start to the weekend then, remember, was our pole sitter here in Motorland Aragon last season, but that was Toprak Razgatlioglu's first round back from injury. This is the look at the new lap record, and we did wonder whether that might tumble in Superpole this morning, given how close Andrea Iannone was to it in free practice earlier on. For Iannone, down in 11th position after his first stint, so a lot of ground to find for Iannone, who went faster than that time just in free practice 3 this morning.
Yeah, and for Iannone, half a second faster this morning, but it also comes down to what your tyre allocation is and what you're going to use in these sessions. So for Iannone, 11th fastest right now. We saw that he went out behind the Lowes brothers as well, and then seemed to get dropped by them. Did that lap a little bit on his own, so we'll see what he does on his second stint. But Toprak underneath what had been the lap record as well, but he's got a 10th of a second to find.
Razgatlioglu has been our top qualifier in 2025, hasn't been off the front row of the grid at all this season, hasn't dropped a point in the Superpole Awards since Misano. 4 of the last 5 poles, 3 poles in a row, and under some pressure here from Nicolo Bulliger, who leads the way. Good start for the Yamahas with Andrea Locatelli in 4th and Jonathan Ray in 6th. Ray's in more peril though, isn't he? 7 tenths of a second back from Bulliger, and you look at the group behind Ray, Alex Lowes, Michael van der Mark, Dominic Egerter, Alvaro Bautista, Andrea Iannone, all around about within 2 tenths of a second of Ray, currently in 6th place.
Yeah, and Lowes is fastest in the first sector of everyone, and he'd expect that he's able to make a step forward whenever he goes out there to do his next lap. Obviously, that's the first time this weekend he's been out there on the X tyre. Some riders went out and used it this morning in the FP3 session, so the likes of Iannone were out there with the soft tyre in setting that fast time.
Yes, the SCX tyre for this weekend in Motorland Aragon will be the qualifying tyre, so it will be available again in tomorrow's Superpole race, but it will not be a race tyre in Motorland.
Toprak, Locatelli, Van der Mark and Xavi Vierge all out together, and then it looked like maybe Yari Montella at the back end of that group as well. So for these riders, they know that Toprak's going to be pushing as hard as he can to try and get that pole time. Locatelli needs to just stick right in that rear wheel.
Yes, former teammates, of course, on the Yamaha. Andrea Locatelli stayed on. Toprak Razgatlioglu moved to BMW, where Jonathan Ray then came in to replace Toprak on the Yamaha. It's been his final season now in WorldSBK as a full-time rider at very least. There are continued words that he might stay within competition, and we may even have an opportunity to see him again as a wild card. But we're ticking off circuits on the calendar that Ray's visiting for the final time. He is the joint record holder for race victories here in Motorland.
Yeah, it's not going to help Ray being behind Domi Aguilar on your final fast lap as well. You're trying to find the right draft partner. You're trying to find the person to work with. Domi's 9th fastest, Ray's 6th fastest. They needed to find someone else. That's where for Iannone and for Danilo Petrucci, they've backed the right horse here.
Yeah, great chance to follow Nicolo Bulliger. In fact, Andrea Iannone pushing for position, coming out of the pit lane, trying to get in front of Petrucci and latch onto the tail of Nicolo Bulliger. And Andrea Iannone, we know the potential is there for both of these riders, Iannone and Petrucci, but down on the 4th row of the grid as things stand, both of them will be looking for a much better second stint.
Yeah, it was on the outlap in the first stint that Iannone got dropped by the other riders around him, so he needs to do a better job on this one to be able to stick with Bulliger and give yourself that chance to move up the grid.
Toprak Razgatlioglu about to embark on his first flying lap. Andrea Locatelli tucked in right with him. They've dropped the rest of that group, Michael van der Mark and the likes of Xavi Vierge behind them as they come onto the start-finish straight then. And it is Toprak Razgatlioglu who's generally been the man to beat. As I said, hasn't been beaten in a Superpole session since Misano, and that is the only time he's been beaten in the last 5 rounds.
It looked like maybe a small mistake there from Locke on the run in towards turn 1. That's going to compromise Van der Mark's opening lap of this stint as well and just leave Toprak in clear air. He just went in a bit deep into turn 1.
Let's see what Toprak Razgatlioglu's first sector time is like here. 3.5 minutes remaining in Superpole.
When you're following Toprak, it's easy for that to happen as well. Toprak kind of lulls you into the corner and for Lockie, he just got caught out by that, so he needs to regroup, make sure he's able to get a second lap in.
Yeah, it will be the second lap. Locatelli 6/10 of a second down after sector 1. Van der
Toprak sitting up
2 seconds. Well, Toprak was up after sector 1, but he's given up on this one. He's got to be careful that he doesn't ride slowly on the racing line here and accrue himself a penalty, because Xavi Vierque is still trying to push on for a lap. He was only a 10th down after the first sector.
I think Xavi's going to be happier in this situation as well, though. But for Toprak, didn't see what the issue was for him there, why he sat up, but Van der Mark's gone missing there as well from that group.
Van der Mark dropped 2 seconds in the opening sector. There we just see him there. Further back down the order, Alvaro Bautista launching his first flying lap. He's 10th position in this session at the moment. Dropped 2/10 of a second in the opening sector. Third on the grid, remember, here in the 2024 Aragon round. I think the last time he made the front row in WorldSBK. He's had 3 second row starts in the first 4 rounds of this season. And in the 5 rounds since, he's averaged just 10th on the grid, and that's where he sits at present. Really important for Alvaro Bautista to bring himself in the mix, because here at Motorland Aragon in particular, you rather feel that Bautista has a better chance at this venue of some big points than he has had at some of the recent circuits we've visited. Bautista will be the first of the big guns then to reach the line and try and make an improvement on the first flying lap of his second and final stint. Less than 2 minutes remaining here in Superpole. Bautista crosses the line for P5. Up ahead of Axel Bassani. Jonathan Ray relegated onto the 3rd row of the grid then, with Alex Lowe's and Michael van der Mark. Halfway mark on this latest lap. We've got several riders lighting up the timing tower. Nicolo Bulliger is up by almost 2/10. Sam Lowe's is up by 2/10. 1.5 tenths up for Alex Lowe's. Up as well for Danilo Petrucci by a 10th.
Yeah, Petrucci's got Bulliger in front of him. For Alex Lowe's, he's behind Sam Lowe's, so we've got 2 groups just coming down the back straight now to give themselves the chance to improve their lap times. This is Jonathan Ray we see here now. The lap time's gone away from Ray. He was fastest in the first sector. He's down by a 1.5 now as he comes across the line. But it's the group behind that that's got the Lowe's brothers, and then you've got Petrucci and Bulliger as well.
Jonathan Ray, an average P10 on the grid last season, average P12 on the grid this season. He's 7th at the moment. Sam Lowe's crosses the line for a new fastest lap of 1 minute 47.491, and then he's beaten by Alex Lowe's a 1. And then Nicolo Bulliger crosses the line to further improve his provisional pole time. That's half a second quicker than he went for pole position a year ago. Toprak Razgatlioglu with a real stretch target now just to make it onto the front row of the grid.
Now we really need to be able to see what Toprak's doing. He's up by 200ths of a second at the halfway point of the lap. This is Bulliger just in the first sector, but Razgatlioglu up by a 10th of a second heading down the back straight.
Toprak Razgatlioglu 1.5 tenths of a second up after 3 completed sectors. It is once again a head-to-head between Nicolo Bulliger and Toprak Razgatlioglu, the top 2 in your World Championship standings. We catch up now with Toprak just making his way through the final turn with just over 10 seconds remaining. 1 minute 47.332 from Nicolo Bulliger, the time to beat. Toprak can't get there. 10th of a second down. It's good enough to maintain his unbroken run of front row starts in 2025, but it's not good enough for pole. There is a chance for one more lap if Toprak Razgatlioglu could save enough tyre. The checkered flag has now fallen. This will be his last.
You can get 3 laps on the tyre. It's just tough to do that. We saw obviously Toprak, he sat up for most of his first lap, so maybe he's been able to save something. Bulliger halfway through his lap up by 0.5 of a second, but for Razgatlioglu, we'll get our first indication now that he's down by 0.2 of a second. The lap time's gone for Toprak.
Stunning pace though up at the front. Alvaro Bautista just crossing the line to take the checkered flag. 1 minute 47.800 for him, so it's a place on the second row of the grid for Alvaro Bautista. And for Bautista, that will be his best Superpole performance since the Italian round at Cremona. Round 4 of this, the 10th, remember, of the 12 in 2025. So sharper for Bautista, maybe not quite as good as he would have been hoping for. As Nicolo Bulliger comes across the line, another 1 minute 47.3 for Bulliger. So another time faster than Toprak's fastest in this session.
Yeah, great effort in the Superpole session. Obviously, when we get into the race, it's going to be interesting to see what Bulliger can do up against Razgatlioglu. But this is a place where Nico had the lap record last year, but you're half a second faster than it this year. Really is impressive from Bulliger. And so many other riders going underneath what had been the lap record, all the way back to Iannone in 7th. So it is, it's really impressive to see that pace.
Yes, Iannone gets down to the pace that he suggested he would have when we saw him in free practice 3 this morning. And yet it's still not good enough for even a place on the second row of the grid.
We didn't get to see too much of it, but Iannone was behind Petrucci, who was behind Bulliger. So they were working together in tandem for that. Then the group in front of them was Lowe's, and Remy Gardner. Gardner's able to come in the top 10, just narrowly missing out on being the top Yamaha on the grid by a couple of tenths of a second. Good effort from Ray because he did that on his own.
Yes, and we saw Andrea Locatelli fourth on the timesheets yesterday, but Jonathan Ray in free practice was nowhere. He's found something extra in Superpole, and so many times we've said that's the one thing that's been wanting during his Yamaha career. Got a decent place on the third row of the grid.
Yeah, it gives him an opportunity, and we know that down into turn one, chances are Ray's going to be inside the top 6, going through turn 1 and try and make some moves up the hill towards turn 5. He'll view it that there's a good opportunity to be a bit of a cat amongst the pigeons.
It is Nicolo Bullica on pole for the first time since Misano. And we know how much Ducati enjoy and favour this circuit, but still to go toe-to-toe with Razgat Dioglu to end his run of 3 consecutive poles and to smash the lap record by over half a second. Job well done this morning for Nicolo Bullica.
Yeah, he's done exactly what he has to do, and obviously we're coming to this round where last year he had that technical problem in race 1. He came through 2 podiums in the Sunday races, but there's a bit of unfinished business for him here at Aragon as well.
His first victory here in Motorland. Second place on the grid is far from disastrous. As I said, extends his unbroken run of front row starts in this 2025 campaign. It's 12 in a row, in fact, now. Front row efforts after qualifying for Toprak Razgat Dioglu. And completing your front row of the grid, Alex Lowe. And I think if you'd offered that to Alex at the start of this session, he would have accepted that quite willingly to be behind only Bulliga and Razgat Dioglu. Obviously working together with Sam Lowe's as well, and we know the speed that both of them have traditionally in Superpole sessions. But Alex Lowe's on the Bimotor here in Aragon in particular, that's a really good effort for P3.
Yeah, and again, in the Superpole session, able to find something, and found a lot of time in the final sector, only down by a tenth of a second on Bautista's fastest time in that sector, and pretty much matching the pace of a lot of the fast riders out there, a little bit faster than even Toprak. Toprak was struggling in the final sector a little bit in this session.
And as for riders who make progress in the second stint, Danilo Petrucci's got to be satisfied to be on the second row, P5. I think similarly was on the second row of the grid here last season. Andrea Iannone, 7th place, better than he's generally been doing in Superpole sessions. I think he'll be pleased enough to keep himself in the mix. It's not quite the front row start that he had on his way to victory here a year ago, but the expectations in 2025 have got to be somewhat more modest than that for you know.
Yeah, they have to be, and it's good to be able to see at the front of the field 3 different manufacturers all working well. But now you start to think about what it's going to do for the races as well, and the races this afternoon, they're going to be pretty tricky for a lot of riders. Speaking to some riders yesterday, they said front tyre life was going to be an issue. Other riders said they don't really see it there being too much of a reason for concern. It's going to come down to if you're stuck in a bit of traffic, really, and you want to give yourself that chance to be at the front right from the start.
Yeah, the question is about the final third of the race, isn't it, and how tyre life manages. That's why Pirelli brought the harder allocation last season after resurfacing of this Motorland Aragon venue. And the higher grip, once again justified by, of course, smashing the lap record for Nicolo Bulliga. The reaction and the handshake between the two of them. Toprak will know that the points aren't up for grabs until this afternoon, and that's where the real business is to be.
Yeah, and you can see for Bulliga there, he gave the handshake, but in a hurry to get away from Toprak as well. And they know that there's a world championship that they're fighting for at this stage.
Yeah, it's a tall order, isn't it, for Bulliga? Those are the kind of performances that he was putting in the early stages of the season, where he could beat Toprak to a pole position in Phillip Island, in Cremona, even in Misano. But the last 3 rounds in particular have been damaging for Bulliga. That'll be a confidence boost for him as well.
Yeah, important to get that confidence boost, because missing out in the front row at Balaton, the issues that he had in the Superpole race in the wet conditions or the damp conditions, it's been a season where if he's made a mistake, Toprak has fully capitalised on it. And obviously for Razgat Dioglu, he had his issues at the start of the year. Phillip Island on the Sunday not scoring any points. So it's been much of a muchness for the good luck, bad luck between both those riders this season. Toprak's just had that edge over the summer in terms of being able to consistently find a little bit extra when it comes to the races. But for the first time in a while, he's looking up at someone on the grid.
Yes, a rarity. As I said earlier on, he hasn't been beaten at all in the Superpole Award since the Superpole session in Misano. So since then, every Superpole race victory, every pole position. So as you say, plenty of races there in a string where he's been the first man off the line. That said, he's hardly going to be intimidated by second position. You know, he's won from a lot further back on the grid than that.
Yeah, I don't think Toprak's going to be intimidated by anyone or anything right now in WorldSBK, and he's got that level of confidence that comes from success. And for Razgatlioglu, he knows the important thing is making sure you maintain that winning run. And at the end of the day, if you look back all the way to Most in May, there's only been one race that he hasn't won, and he'll view it that he probably should have won that one as well. So for Razgatlioglu, he's got all the form in the world, but at least we've got a reason for a bit of optimism that Bulga's going to bring that fight to him today.
Still the favourite for this afternoon?
Has to be. If you've gone out and you've had all those wins in a row like Razgatlioglu, you can't have it any other way, that you're not the man to beat. And for Bulga, he has to show something that he hasn't shown over the summer, and that's just bringing the fight to Toprak all the way through a long race.
Yeah, Bulga did have good pace yesterday through free practice on the longer runs. Toprak maybe slightly superior in terms of pace, and they certainly had a couple of tenths of a second a lap over the rest of the field, but they didn't in this Superpole session, because Alex Lowe's has qualified right with Toprak Razgatlioglu. Sam Lowe's within just over a tenth of a second from Toprak as well. And an entertaining scrap for the places on the front row of the grid. Let's hear from your top three then in this Superpole session. Nicolo Bullica, Toprak Razgatlioglu, and first, Alex Lowe's.
Alex Lowe's excellent lap at the end of the session there for P3. Must be pleased to get the Bimotor on the front row.
Yeah, really pleased. Massive thanks to my brother. Yeah, the last sector, I'm sure I gained 2, 3, 4 tenths just following him. So feel a bit bad that I've ended up in front of him, but he's got genuine pace this weekend. Helped me out a lot then. I don't think I've ever done a lap that's on the limit without going over. So fantastic lap. I genuinely couldn't do any more. It's a great lap time, and we're starting from a good position. So thanks, Sam. Thanks to the team. The bike feels quite good. Let's see if we can stay with them guys in the race. But yeah, fantastic.
Great stuff. Thanks, Alex.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, third position for Alex Lowe's. Admitted there he relied somewhat on Sam to give him the tow around. But you've still got to actually make the lap and get it over the line, and so Alex Lowe's only 1.5 tenths of a second slower than Nicolo Bullica in Superpole.
Yeah, and great lap from Lowe's to be able to do that. And you need to have, like we said at the start of that session, you need to have the right draft partner in the Superpole session now, because it's not enough to have the speed on your own. It's very rare that you're able to actually go out and find that pace and find that performance. And a lot of the times you're looking for your teammate. Sometimes you're looking for someone else to work with as well, and it's worked out really well for Alex.
Second place today for Toprak Razgatlioglu, an unfamiliar position. First time he's been beaten in a competitive session since the pole in Misano. Since then he's won every race, taken every Superpole. A rare defeat for Toprak, but he does extend his run of consecutive front row starts that moves up to 12th.
Toprak Razgatlioglu, the run of Superpoles comes to an end, but you're still ready to fight for victory later on.
For me, it's very hard to Superpole because I'm pushing so hard. And first run and second run, I used a different front tire. But finally, I did very good lap time, but we are not get the pole position. Anyway, you know, the race is very important. I know the Ducati always is strong here, but looks like we are fight a lot in the race. We will see. I'm trying to win the race because I'm never win here. And we will see. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Toprak. Well done.
Razgatlioglu has that weight of expectation because of the consecutive victories. He mentions there still hasn't won here in Aragon. Much as it's statistical anomaly, maybe as much as anything, the fact that maybe he hasn't been on the bike to be able to compete at this venue in particular against the Ducatis in their longest seasons, and then had the injury last season, it is still something that's in the back of his mind coming into this week.
Yeah, it's one of those things for Toprak that he knows where he needs to tick the boxes, and it is in his mind, and it is one of those things that for him he's focusing on, but he also focuses on that every week, and it's not enough to win one race a weekend. He's talked so often in the past 5-6 years about, now that I've won one race, I want to win 2 races in a day. Once he won 2 in a day, he wants to win a hat-trick. Then he wants to win them from pole position. Then he wants to win them with the fastest lap. It's always about trying to notch up that next thing on the belt for Razgatlioglu, and Aragon's one of those things.
And for Nicolo Bullica, it is an 8th career pole. 18 front row starts now in WorldSBK, but this one will be sweet. Pipping Toprak Razgatlioglu, first pole position since round 6 of the campaign in Misano.
Nicolo Bullica, a fantastic record lap back on Superpole for the first time since Misano.
Yeah, it was a good lap. Not if I have to be honest, not very perfect, but anyway, it was a good lap, and thanks to my team, we started well from FP1, so I'm quite happy with the feeling with the bike, and I want to continue like this in the races.
Thanks, Nicolo. Best luck for the race.
Thank you.
We've seen good pace from Bulliger on Friday. We've seen him beat Toprak in the Superpole session. What is for sure is that he's going to be much more competitive with Toprak than we certainly saw last time out in Manicourt. Those big winning margins for Toprak. It's going to be a tougher task for him this weekend.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those weekends that Toprak will be challenged, and it's up to Bulliger to make sure that challenge lasts all the way to the end of the race. And that's where, until we see that step, it's difficult to look past what we've seen for Balaton, Donington and Misano, where there were big winning margins as well as Magni, and Toprak over the course of the summer really was able to make that step. But we've seen it at times this year that where the Ducati has that advantage, places like Cremona or Phillip Island, even Assen for Bulliger, despite the problems. They were circuits where you could see that it was going to be really difficult for Toprak to win at. The Ducati was working really well. This is another one of those places, but now we get to see if that's still the case after the improvements BMW have made over the summer.
And completely different areas of the circuit where they're making their speed as well. Razgat Lioglu fastest in sectors 1 and 3. Bulliger making a big chunk in sectors 2 and 4, and the Ducatis we know are so strong in that final sector.
Yeah, Toprak's given up 0.3 of a second in that final sector on their fastest laps. That's a massive margin to try and make up, and it's not about top speed, it's about the punch out of the corners as well. But we'll have to wait and see if they're able to find something for the races. But nice to be able to see David Salam down here as well.
Handing out the Tissot Superpole Award trophies for the Tissot Aragon round in 2025. Third place goes to Alex Lowe's, career front row number 25 by my reckoning. Second place for Toprak Razgat Lioglu, 48th front row start for him in WorldSBK, and his pole position number 8 for Nicolo Bulliger, his first since Misano and his fourth of this 2025 campaign. So let's take you through the confirmed results and the grid positions then for race 1 later on. Bulliger, Razgat Lioglu, Alex Lowe's is your front row of the grid. Sam Lowe's only missing out narrowly at the expense of his brother. It's an all Ducati second row. Danilo Petrucci once again on the second row of the grid here in Motorland Aragon. First time Alvaro Bautista has qualified off the front row of the grid at this venue on a Ducati. It's still P6 for Alvaro Bautista. Third row of the grid for last year's winner Andrea Iannone. Jonathan Ray, top Yamaha, he'll be pleased with that. Andrea Locatelli concludes row number 3. Axel Bassani 11th. He won't stay there, of course, for race 1. He has a penalty, back of the grid penalty for an infraction in free practice, but he will start there in the Superpole race tomorrow morning. Tissot Superpole Award margin is brought down by 3 points in favour of Nicolo Bulliger. It is still Toprak Razgat Lioglu comfortably clear. Rejoin us then in 2 hours' time for race 1 of the 2025 Aragon round. Toprak Razgat Lioglu and Nicolo Bulliger head-to-head for their first wins here in Motorlands. back through to lead on lap 2. So now there's no bike between Onchu and Manzi, who are second and third in this race. Alcoba doing well to go with them. Myas, Ertl, Farioli, Casadei, Tom Booth-Amos currently in ninth with that penalty to serve, remember, and Garcia rounding out your top 10.
Yeah, we'll see when Booth-Amos serves that penalty. You'd imagine it'll be the next lap around. You'd try and give yourself the chance to be able to open up enough the gap to the riders behind you, but for Booth-Amos and for the PTR Triumph team, they would have had a bit of a strategy in mind for what they were going to do with it.
Bit of a gap between Chan Onchu and Stefano Manzi. It's 7/10 of a second at the moment, but remember, Manzi made up 3 seconds on Onchu from lap 11 onwards in race 2 in Magny-Cours, so he's not going to be afraid of that kind of margin at this stage, but certainly the top 2 will be hoping to break away here.
You can see Booth-Amos doesn't take that long lap penalty. He's got Jaume Masia behind him, and Masia on the number 51 machine. That's his rival for third in the World Championship.
Presumably just waiting for the field to thin out a little bit so that he can enter into a gap, because obviously if you take it right at the start, you're going to end up at the back of a big break.
Traditionally here in Aragon, the long lap penalty doesn't cost you as much as it does at a lot of other circuits, so we'll see what happens for Booth-Amos whenever he takes it. Probably going to drop about 2 seconds.
Yes, and the same number of laps to serve it as usual, so each of those laps is longer. That's a bit of an advantage as well, but we are clutching at straws rather for a rider who's down in 10th position at the moment as they race their way through the birds and onto the back straight again. Valentin de Bees on the racing line, Chan Onchu with the inside line, past de Bees here a lap ago. This time he gets alongside him and de Bees turns in and holds his ground for turn 16. So nervous faces at Renzi Corsa as Valentin de Bees leads the way, but it's interesting to see him. A slightly more confident approach on lap 2 compared to the opening lap for de Bees.
It's been a great season for Renzi Corsa. They've made a big step forward having de Bees on the bike, and the last thing you're waiting for is that opportunity to win a race, and de Bees doesn't want to give up an opportunity here up against Onchu, and Manzi closing in on them as well. It's not going to be easy for de Bees, but at least he'll feel that he is a fighting chance now.
Yes, and he is a fighter, Valentin de Bees. He's said several times that, you know, if he has to have an incident or whatever trying for the first race victory, then so be it. It's wins, it's podiums that are the target, not a specific position in the championship. He's down the order at the moment in 8th overall, Valentin de Bees, but leading this race, and throughout the early stages, just keeping Chan Onchu at base. Stefano Manzi now beginning to make some progress. A few tenths of a second pulled back on Chan Onchu last time around. The gap down to 4 tenths of a second at the start of this lap 3.
Yeah, that looks like Masia has ran off at the top of the corkscrew, and you can see there for Tom Booth-Amos taking his penalty. It might have been might have been Farioli that ran off. Maybe one of the MPs. Yes,
Tom Booth-Amos rejoining, and let's see where he does join. According to the information we've got, it's around about the fringes of the points. So he'll have lost 5 or 6 positions there, Tom Booth-Amos. He now rejoins the racetrack as we watch our 2 leaders, Valentin de Bees from Chan Onchu and Stefano Manzi trying to bridge the gap.
Yeah, it looks like it was our pole sitter Casadei that might have ran off the track there up at the top of the corkscrew, but drops all the way down the field. But de Bees there opening up a little bit of a margin now in this lap.
To the back straight, and that's of course an area where now the Ducati will fancy its chances of stretching its legs and look further back at Philip Ertl using his Ducati to get up and alongside Jeremy Alcoba. Alcoba holding firm there and riding well in the early stage of this race. This is for 4th position, remember. Alcoba becoming detached though from the podium contenders. If Ertl wants to have a go for a rostrum spot here, he needs to get clear of Alcoba as swiftly as possible.
Yeah, and the rider behind them as well, Garcia on the 37 Yamaha, he's caught them by a few tenths of a second a lap, and he's got the pace to be able to give himself a chance to come through this group as well.
Farioli with a new personal best last time around, and Filippo Farioli is now through on Jeremy Alcoba for 5th place. So we know that the Kawasaki is a little bit up against it, and Alcoba just beginning to fade now in these early laps. We'll see if he can latch on and stay with this group of 4-5 riders. Luca Myers trying to come back at them as well behind. Just caught a glimpse there of Chan Onchu, a 10th of a second now from Valentin de Bees up at the head of the field. Another 6 tenths of a second back to Stefano Manzi, who's not been able to make any further progress on the tail of the 2 leaders. Gap back to Philip Ertl in 4th is over a second. Then Farioli, Alcoba, Garcia and Myers making quick progress on their tail as well.
Yeah, and if you're the rider chasing that first race victory like Valentin de Bees, the last riders you want chasing on your tail are the Onchu and Manzi bike 61 and 62, because they're so combative as well. But Manzi He's obviously pushing as hard as he can there. You can see how much the bike's moving around on the brakes down in towards turn 12 and just trying to give himself that opportunity. The Ducati's working well in a different area to the Yamaha.
Into the weekend last time out for Valentin Debise. He failed to score at the French round. He's had rather too many incidents and retirements this season, right the way back to Phillip Island, a retirement in race 1 in Assen, race 2 in Cremona, race 1 in Most, and then a retirement in Hungary and 2 non-scores in Manipur last time out. So Debise will be desperate to get back up onto the rostrum here. He has lost the lead on lap 4. Chan On Chu comes through and does manage to get it stopped for turn 16 as well.
He lost the lead because of a mistake in turn 14. He ran in a bit too hot. It then narrowed his line through 15 and allowed Onchu to carry the roll speed through 15. So it's a circuit where if you make a mistake at one corner, it does impact you on the next.
It's clear, though, that the Ducati is the more forgiving of the 2 bikes at the moment, because immediately he's able to breeze straight back through in a matter of 600 meters, and then the heavy braking in the run down towards turn 1.
Yeah, the Ducati's a good bike. You can see that Philip Bertel's moved up into 4th position. Fast slapped the race last time around. He pulled back 0.3 of a second on the race leader.
Bertel only gets back into this race if Debise holds up Onchu and Manzi. And in the case of Manzi in particular, that's going to be a tough task, because it's Stefano Manzi who's the fastest rider out there in this group at the moment. And Onchu is keen to wrestle clear of Valentin Debise. And that's good strategy from Onchu. Do it elsewhere in the lap. Try and make a gap before you get onto that back straight, because it is in that final sector where the Yamaha looks most vulnerable.
Yeah, I'm quite curious to see what happens now on the run through the long left-hander we're just coming through now. Is that going to set something up into turn 12, where we saw a lap ago Debise with the front end moving around underneath him on the brakes? He's got a lot of confidence into that part of the track. We'll wait and see if it's enough to be able to allow him to attack on the race leader.
Worst case scenario, of course, for Debise would be to be passed by Manzi as well, and then the top 2 in the championship have an opportunity then to break away.
This is where Debise made a mistake last time around into the next right-hander, and it's easy to go in a little bit hot into this corner. It's quite steeply downhill, and it pushes you off to the left-hand side of the track. So Debise a little bit tidier this time around. Let's see what he can do up against that Yamaha in front of him. We've seen obviously that he's been able to defend that position against Onchu, but Chan with those few bike lengths in front, it'd be difficult to make that up.
Watching the 3 race leaders here, Onchu, Debise, Manzi. Separate fight going on behind them. Ertl struggling to hold back Filippo Farioli, who's gained 0.3 of a second on this lap so far, with new personal best sectors 1 and 3. Coming through to the end of lap number 5 then. Valentin Debise recovered the lead against Chan Onchu down the start-finish straight 1 lap ago. He's doing the same again here to lead at the start of lap 6. Debise back in front ahead of Onchu and Manzi, all covered by less than 0.3 of a second now.
Yeah, good battling stuff from Debise, and Manzi's just keeping that watching brief. Obviously for him, for the championship, he doesn't have to think too much in terms of having to come through in these riders in front. He's just trying to play a little bit of a patient game right now.
This is where Manzi likes to be, isn't it? Wait till half distance and then see what he's got as to whether he can try and break away from these 2. He's lapped right onto their tails now. Fastest first sector of anyone a lap ago, personal best 4th sector. So Manzi just keeps chipping away at that lead, and there is no lead now. Debise holding on valiantly, but Chan Onchu and Stefano Manzi, they're the top 2 in the World Championship for a reason. It's been a long time since we last had neither of them winning the race. And Valentin Debise is hoping to add his name to a list of 5 different winners in 2025.
Yeah, and just behind them as well, we saw Ertl and Farioli fighting it out on the run down in towards turns 8 and 9, and Farioli got really close to Ertl. The last thing they need to do right now is fight with each other. They want to just give themselves that chance to use their pace to get themselves back up onto the back of the 2 Yamahas in front of them and turn this podium battle into a 5-way fight.
Yes, just as you say, Philip Ertl, Filippo Farioli in behind. Farioli being dropped slightly on this lap 6 so far, and that's perhaps Philip Ertl stepping up the pace.
Just because of that small mistake into turn 8, that's what's cost Farioli that little bit of time, so we'll see what he can do down the back straight.
Meanwhile, in the background there, Luca Myers challenging Jeremy Alcoba for 7th position. Chan Onchu coming through again on Valentin Debise if he can get it stopped. Debise then has the run coming off the final turn and down the start-finish straight. Important this for Onchu, of course, because if he needs to on the final lap, he knows that it could be an opportunity to make that pass into turn 16, but every lap around, Valentin Debise has got the pace advantage down the start-finish straight.
Yeah, Valentin exits that last couple of corners really strong. 16 and 17 is a double apex left-hander. You're on the edge of the tyre all the way through it, and the Ducati's working well through that part of the corner. and DeBees is able to attack back each time.
Gap to Philip Ertl, 0.8 of a second now at the start of lap 7.
Just in terms of the last lap, you can see from those riders, it's also important to keep an eye on the fastest laps from each of the riders. Ertl, Manzi and Varioli will be our provisional front row of the grid right now.
To tomorrow afternoon, of course, as Chan On-Chu launches his move down the inside of Valentin DeBees, and that's another change of the race lead. But the question is, what will DeBees be able to do now around the rest of the lap? Because each time that Chan On-Chu has seen daylight in front of him, DeBees has immediately responded.
I'm just keeping an eye on that second Ducati, because Philip Ertl is getting bigger and bigger and bigger at the back of the shot. And he really is finding some pace, found a quarter of a second compared to the other riders last time around, and provisionally on pole with the fastest lap of this race. Last time around he was still only a few hundredths of a second off of it, so he's got good consistency as well.
Yes, you have rather felt that when the opportunity is there for the Ducati, at some point it's got to click for Philip Ertl. He's a capable performer, third in the 2020 World Championship. Remember, on the Kawasaki's had 12 podiums in the Supersport class before he stepped up for a couple of seasons into the Superbike class. Hasn't been a successful return to the middleweight category for Philip Ertl, but this is the best he's looked and the closest to the sharp end that he's looked really since that race 2 podium in Most, his lone rostrum finish of the 2025 campaign, as DeBees sweeps clear of Chan On-Chu going into turn 16 at the end of lap number 7.
Ertl made a small mistake on that lap down in that downhill section 14 and 15, made a small error through there, lost a bit of time.
And On-Chu this time is the rider making progress down the start-finish straight into turn 1. He goes, sweeps across the bows of Valentin DeBees, and now On-Chu has track position through the end of the first sector. There's an opportunity for him here.
Yeah, good block pass there from On-Chu, comes through and leaves DeBees with no option but to cede the position. And now we'll see if he's able to open up a little bit of a gap over the 53, because for On-Chu, we've seen that he's attacked into the uphill right-hander at turn 7. Now he's been able to make that move a little bit earlier. He'll try and see if that gives him the chance to open up a little bit of an extra gap towards pursuers.
Stefano Manzi lost 0.2 of a second in the opening sector of lap 7. He's lost another 0.3 of a second in the opening sector of lap 8 compared to Chan On-Chu. So either On-Chu is very strong through there, or Manzi has lost ground through the opening sector for back-to-back laps. And perhaps part of that is a little bit of slipstream opportunity as well.
Well, On-Chu's just set the best first sector of anyone in the race so far, so he's got his head down to make that move, hit the front and try and open up a gap. We'll see what happens in the middle sector of the lap this time around. They're just coming through to finish it, and it's actually DeBees with a personal best in that second sector, so he's done what he has to do to keep On-Chu honest.
Yes, Stefano Manzi continuing to drop away though on this lap number 8. Half a second now is the gap. Frankly, for Manzi in the context of the championship, keep racking up podiums and you're world champion at some stage. But we know that Manzi doesn't tend to think like that. We've seen great evidence of it at the last 2 rounds. And Manzi is still right there in touch to challenge for this race victory.
Yeah, Manzi on the third bike in the shot there, the green helmet, just keeping that watch and brief right now. The gap back to Philip Ertl is around about 0.8 of a second as well. So just coming back to the leaders there as well, Manzi in that last sector, you could see that he was able to close up ever so slightly on them. Obviously with DeBees behind On-Chu, it meant that you weren't getting pulled all the way down the straight like they were with Ducati.
0.4 of a second between that lead trio then as we come on to lap number 9, and Valentin DeBees again captures the lead back into turn 1. Riding here between him and Chan On-Chu. They've kept it clean thus far, but Manzi is waiting for it all to go wrong ahead of him. Just remaining a couple of tenths of a second back in third position. We'll see what the first sector times are like this time around on lap 9. Stefano Manzi looks a little bit closer this time around. Gap to Philip Ertl still 0.8 of a second. Varioli still there, lost a little bit of ground on that previous lap number 8. Then the gap for the record to Jeremy Alcoba in 6th is 3.5 seconds. Alcoba holding off Garcia, Cardelas, Myers, who must have hit problems somewhere on that previous lap. He's lost a little bit of ground. Ben Schneider rounding out the top 10. And good recovery from Alberto Sura. He's now up into 11th position ahead of Jaume Massi.
Yeah, Sura's the rider on the bubble right now for the fastest laps. He's 10th fastest lap, so that means he'll still have to come all the way through the field like he did this morning. He needs to put in a new personal best soon for a good grid position for race 2.
20th position on the grid coming in for this one. We know that the longevity should be there for a rider to be able to set an improved lap time. See what Sura and the others can do in the remainder of this race. We're deep into the race now, such as the length of the laps here in Motorland Aragon. Lap 9 of 15. And it is Valentin Debise leading Chan On-Chu. Still Stefano Manzi 0.4 of a second back. Didn't lose much ground in the first sector this time around. Lost a little bit in sector 3. As you see, On-Chu with the slipstream advantage pulled right back onto the tail of Valentin Debise. Not quite close enough to make his pass into turn 16.
Yeah, and for Debise, this is the moment he needs to get the head down and try and open up a little bit of a gap, see what he can do. We're just coming up towards the end of 2/3 distance, and this is the phase of the race where a lot gets decided for if anyone else is going to join them. Hard to be able to see how Philip Ertl and Barrioli really get back onto that group unless they fight with each other and cost that bit of time.
That's exactly it, isn't it? Ertl's keeping his pace consistent. 1 minute 53.4 last time around. On-Chu and Manzi, their pace drops off slightly. Ertl's made back 1/10 of a second compared to the leader. 1.3 now the gap for Philip Ertl. 7/10 to Stefano Manzi ahead of him.
Just ever so slightly too big right now to be in that battle, and for Manzi, it's not been a case of him giving himself a chance to jump back onto the On-Chu bike as well. We saw a few laps where he was being able to bring himself back to those race leaders, but right now it looks like Manzi just doesn't quite have that speed at this stage of the race.
No, what On-Chu needs, though, is to hit the front on Debise and for Manzi to be passed by Ertl and Farioli. That's the kind of margin that On-Chu needs to gain over Manzi in every race between now and the end of the season to have a hope of making back such a mammoth margin as 69 points to challenge for this Supersport World Championship. But at least every time he beats Stefano Manzi, he delays the inevitable.
Yeah, and certainly for On-Chu riding really well in this race. But Debise, for a rider that's never won a race in the Supersport World Championship, he really is looking impressive. He's looking composed. He made that one mistake at the start of the race, but he collected. He was still able to give himself a chance to get back to the front, but it's going to be a long 5.5 laps to the end.
Valentin Debise, who had 7 podiums at 7 different circuits in 2024. He's had 11 podiums in all in the Supersport World Championship. This is his 89th race start. And could it be his first victory after 3 second places, the best of his results? Debise under pressure from Chan On-Chu going into turn 16. Of course, On-Chu, Manzi, they've been in this kind of position so many times before. Valentin Debise had led laps before, but he's never had a race victory as yet. He's determined to get one here this afternoon as he fights back on Chan On-Chu down the start finish straight and in towards turn 1 on lap 11. Valentin Debise is your leader again.
Yeah, and for Debise, a 53.3, still a very competitive lap time at this stage of the race. And Valentin just looking impressive. He's only 1/10 of a second off his fastest lap of the race now, so tyre life not an issue. You wouldn't expect that with the SC0 rear tyres on. That a little bit harder allocation, and the Supersport rider is able to ride pretty comfortably with it.
Are we looking at a potential photo finish here? Because every lap, Debise and On-Chu are side by side down the start finish straight. I thought at one stage or another, one of them might be able to break away. That hasn't been the case. It's as if there's been a rope tied between the two of them for the entire distance. We have passed 2/3 now, and On-Chu still right with him.
Just for Debise there, if anyone saw it, he moved his left hand on the handlebar. What he's doing there is he's just trying to change his brake adjuster. It might just be coming back to him a little bit too quickly now, so he just wants to improve his feel on the brake lever, and that's what that change would have been.
Manzi loses another 2/10 of a second. Look how the gap has opened now. It's 6/10 of a second back to Stefano Manzi in third. Philip Ertl still 7/10 behind Manzi, and then another half a second back is Filippo Farioli. So Farioli remaining there in P5. Cardelos, Mayas, Garcia, Masia and Alcoba rounding out your top 10, with Sura still in 11th position on track as we see Debise versus On-Chu once again. What's the strategy on the final lap here for Chan On-Chu?
For On-Chu, he has to find a way to get to the front end, this back straight, lead into turn 16 and 17, because for Debise, he's stronger at the end of the start-finish straight. I don't think he's close enough to be able to actually get past him on the run to the line, but he is strong enough to be able to get back through if there's that last lap.
First race victory on the line, though, for Valentin Debise. He's turning into turn 16, regardless of whether there's someone alongside him, isn't he?
Yeah, he has to. But he'll also take a different line on that last lap. You're going to take that left-hand line on the back straight to give yourself a chance of forcing the other rider to run around the outside. Another good move by On-Chu into turn 1, but we've seen this story already in this race.
Yes, Debise, each time On-Chu has passed him, has been able to answer back. Will lap 12 be any different to what we've seen so far? On-Chu with a little bit of daylight opening up to Valentin Debise behind him. Just in Bo Benschneider here retiring to the pits. He was running outside of the top 10 positions, and that will be the end of his race as a serious contest.
Just in terms of what we've seen in the first sector, Onchu straight away finds 0.3 of a second compared to what he's been doing when he's been chasing DeBees in that first sector. So once again, he's in a position to try and drop the hammer. And now it comes to DeBees. Can you come back towards the number 61 machine? This is where DeBees' bike works quite well, and he's been able to make up quite a bit of that time straight away.
Boy, was he pushing hard going through turn 8, and then on the steep descent here at Motorland Aragon, they climb the hill once again, slide their way through turn 10, and then it's in the final sector where Valentin DeBees has repeatedly been able to make the overtake on Chan Onchu, safely negotiate turn 12. We saw famously an incident for Jules Cluzel through there in years gone by in the Supersport World Championship. DeBees still nose to tail with Chan Onchu, the race leader. Looked as though he was a little hot in there to turn 14, but gathers it up. Make a long back straight of it now to try and pull alongside Chan Onchu. This is lap 12 of 15. We've got 4 more runs through turn 16 and 17. Onchu, this is the biggest the gap has been between the two of them for some time. It's important for DeBees now to try and strike back going into turn 1 before Onchu settles into a rhythm.
But look at how strong he was into 16. He's able to carry all that speed through the first part of that corner. The different lines between the Ducati and the Yamaha, it sets up where you're going to exit the corner as well. And for DeBees, he's really strong through 16, and that's what puts him back in front.
DeBees outbreaks Onchu there in towards turn number 1 at the start of lap 13. And Valentin DeBees takes the lead again.
He didn't have to outbreak him. He was already in position to take that corner. DeBees just looking very comfortable in what he has to do, and they've got enough of a margin now over Manzi that they don't have to think about Steph right now.
Not right now, but they start fighting on the last lap, and Manzi will put a little extra spurt on. We heard from him in Magny-Cours say, I did start to think at one stage, well, I don't really need to win this race, and then he decided to put the head down and go for it anyway. If there's half an opportunity for Manzi, he'll be back with them. But for the moment, as you say, 0.6 of a second is a relatively safe margin.
DeBees has found 0.2 of a second in the first sector. He's matched Onchu's pace when Onchu's hit the front. So this is the moment where Valentin DeBees is going to try and put the hammer down and see if he can open up a bit of a gap over Chan Onchu. Needs to have those few tenths of a second in hand.
Valentin DeBees has your race lead on the number 53. It's been a long race for him trying to fend off Chan Onchu, and it's going to be the longest 2.5 laps he's yet had in the Supersport World Championship. His best shot yet at being a race winner at this level. And what a story that would be for Valentin DeBees, who's been a quality national level rider throughout his career, who is something of a late bloomer at World Championship level, has been a regular podium finisher over the last couple of campaigns, but has never had a chance like this to finally claim a first victory at World Championship level.
Yeah, very experienced rider, but he's still up against it because you've got Chan Onchu using that slipstream, trying to attack back. Have a look and see what happens down into 16 once again for DeBees. He's laid on the brakes and he's able to come across, but a little bit wider on this lap. Is that going to open up the door for Onchu to come back into turn 1?
Yeah, possibly back into turn 1 for Chan Onchu. Lap 13 reaches its conclusion. 2 to go for Valentin DeBees. 10 kilometers to hold back Chan Onchu.
New personal best from DeBees as well, and he's really piling the pressure on Onchu, but Onchu keeps putting himself in a position to answer back.
DeBees has got to make sure this doesn't end in the gravel trap as well. How many times he's pushed on to try and go for a race victory and then has had an error or had a mistake and ended up scoreless from a race. This is a great opportunity for him not to waste.
A lot of the time that's been whenever he's been chasing something down rather than being in a position to defend a lead and try and give himself that chance. So DeBees is where he needs to be right now. He hasn't looked like making a mistake other than that one lap where he ran in hot into turn 14 at the start of the race. So for DeBees, you just got to keep doing what you're doing. And for Onchu, he's going to give himself that opportunity to come back during the last lap.
Yes, and DeBees in a little bit hot again as they come down the hill, and Chan Onchu now right with him.
If you're Onchu, you need to make the move into turn 1 like we saw earlier in the race, and then you need to just try and find a way to be able to hold and hug that inside line down the back straight on the last lap. Force DeBees to try and run around the outside, but basically just have to make him stand that bike up into 16 as well. There's going to be a lot of tactics on the last lap.
It's going to be a grandstand finish. I just hope it doesn't all end in tears for Valentin DeBees and for Chan Onchu. Still just 1/10 of a second between them. They've given us a masterclass in this race.
Obviously, the Yamaha has been hamstrung with the rev changes for this weekend, but Supersport just keeps delivering good races, and Onchu trying to chase down DeBees on the last lap. You've got a rider trying to win his first race. Onchu trying to somehow stay in championship contention for the rest of the season. They've both got a lot to lose, but they've both got a lot to gain.
The way it's worked out, I'm quite happy with how the balancing has worked. It's still got Onchu and Manzi on the podium, but they're having to sweat against the Ducati here with Valentin DeBees leading the way. at the end of lap number 14. 5 kilometers to go. Ale Valentin, just 0.2 of a second between himself and Jan Onchu. 1.5 seconds now, the gap to Stefano Manzi. It is a head-to-head between De Bees and Onchu on the final lap here in Motorland Aragon.
You could see just how on the limit De Bees was on the brakes into turn 1 there as well, trying to almost defend a ghost down into that corner as well, braking so deep. Onchu, we've seen him make the move into turn 7. Is he going to get close enough in the next couple of corners to try and attack again? De Bees is doing what he has to do, and he's pulled out that extra bike length.
He's made gains in the opening sector of this final lap, but Onchu, you saw how hard he was pushing as well. He knows it's now or never.
Yeah, and for Jan Onchu, you can see they're just having to almost take a couple of bites into turn 7 there. Don't look over your shoulder, Valentin. You need to focus on opening up that gap.
Wants to see what the gap is, but Onchu is right with him. I could have told you, he could have told you, Asim certainly would have told him as well.
That's that little bit of inexperience for being in this position for the battle. Onchu needs to take advantage of that. We'll see if he's able to get close enough to attack into the next left-hander.
Valentin De Bees versus Jan Onchu. Onchu, a multi-time race winner and a championship contender this season. De Bees looking for his first race victory at World Championship level. There was a bit of a bobble there, and Onchu might smell blood in the water here. They are practically nose to tail on the final lap. It's all going to come down to turn 15 through to the end of the lap, the last 3 corners. Valentin De Bees has track position. Jan Onchu will position himself for the slipstream. The run now down towards turn 16. De Bees goes defensive to the inside line. On the back straight, there'll be the longest 900 meters of De Bees' life here. Onchu comes around the outside of him. De Bees will hold firm on the inside, but will he go too deep? Jan Onchu will have the cut back. The pair practically touch, and that might be advantage De Bees now coming off the final turn. 11 podiums in the Supersport World Championship, 3 of them second places. Valentin De Bees is a Supersport race winner. Renzi Corsa are race winners in the Supersport World Championship, and look at what that means. 33 years of age, the Frenchman, and in the veteran stage of his career, is finally a race winner at the 89th attempt. Fantastic scenes. The tricolore will fly on the podium for Valentin De Bees. France have a Supersport race winner, and Valentin De Bees receiving the congratulations of his peers. Boy, was that a hard-earned first race victory.
Yeah, and down in towards 16 when they came close to each other. Onchu did probably the right thing for him. He tried to basically gouge that De Bees was going to go in deep and then try and get back to the inside line. And ultimately, De Bees was still there at that moment, and Onchu wasn't able to come back and take that line. But he did everything he could to win it. But you can't take anything away from De Bees. He's waited so long for this. He's put himself in the shop window a few times for race wins, and this year he's made such a big step forward to try and turn those podiums into race wins, and now he's been able to do it.
And what a long story it's been as well for Valentin De Bees, where he's at times earlier in his career had to field his own entry in national championships to try and make the progress. Obviously, he's moved around manufacturers at World Championship level, but he started at World Championship level more than a decade ago, had a long absence from the championship back to the French Championship, doubling up at times, Supersport, Superbike in the French Championship. He's done other national series as well, but he's proven the level of rider he is. Great race victory for him today.
He raced here 13 years ago in the Supersport class, and then obviously there was that big gap whenever he was back racing in the French Championship, racing in Moto America, trying to find his way. And De Bees has finally found his way to the top step of the podium. I'm looking forward to his YouTube
yes,
channel
as well
during the course of this week.
If it's not just him screaming in excitement the whole way through, because what a day for Valentin De Bees. Race victor at last, and a 6th different race winner in the 2025 season, which, as you said earlier on, Steve, doesn't cease to deliver, even though we're on the verge of crowning a world champion.
Yeah, and you can see for Onchu there, just making his way back, shrug of his shoulders to look at down there on the pit lane, and he'll make his way back in, and just there chanting to Top Rack and Phil Marin as well. There's not an awful lot more that Onchu's able to do in that race, and ultimately comes up just short. But it's been a great season for Onchu, and this again just a continuation of that. He's going to start tomorrow's race from the 3rd row of the grid. Philip Bertel, Manzi and Farioli will be our front row of the grid. Ben Schneider, he's able to salvage something from this race with a 2nd row start ahead of De Bees, Cassidy, and then Onchu will be on the 3rd row with Cardalus and Maya. So it'll be a tougher race tomorrow for Onchu, but we saw just how quick they were off the line and how good himself and Manzi were on that opening couple of corners.
Happy enough with the new rev limits? I'm sure Valentin De Bees will be.
It's one of those ones where when we've been speaking about it on and off air over the weekend, as long as we have good races, we can like it, but you can be sure that the Yamaha teams won't like it. But that's the nature of a class like this. You're trying to find a way to balance so many different configurations of bike. 2 cylinders, 3 cylinders, 4-cylinder bikes, 600, 636, 765, 900s, and you know, to try and figure it out is always really tough.
Stefano Manzi only 3rd place today. Now, regardless of the rev limits, reality was that Chan Onchu had a significant step on him. Almost 3 seconds in the end, he finishes behind Onchu.
Yeah, and that last lap, he's rolling off those last couple of laps, really. But you're still looking at Manzi in that race. He didn't really look like getting close enough to lay a glove on Onchu or Manzi at any stage in that race, but he didn't have to either. So for Manzi, you're able to come away with another podium. You only give up 4 points to your championship lead. You just keep edging closer and closer to what he needs to do.
Valentin Debise, your race winner here today. It will be a popular one. See the French flags flying as he makes his way in. It's been a long, long wait for Valentin Debise to get that victory over the line. And boy, has he done it in style as well.
Yeah, really impressive performance, and leading all those laps and being under pressure all the way through that race, and just able to get it across the line. And we've had so many good French riders in the Supersport class over the years, but it's great to see Debise add his name to the list of race winners.
Yeah, not least because he's been a grafter. You know, he's had to do things the hard way, as I said earlier on, through national championships, through the French championship, through wildcard appearances and substitute appearances here before he finally got given his opportunity, got given his ride. And now he's making hay with it. It was a bold decision, actually, to move to Renzi Corsa, because you know, he was riding with comfort last season. Ultimately, the Yamaha package this season has proven the right one to be on. But Debise has worked hard through the season. He's knocked on the door of podiums, as you've said already. Had a rostrum finish in race 1 in Cremona, race 2 in Misano. But the top step of the podium at last for Valentin Debise here in Aragon.
Yeah, and for Valentin, it's really such an impressive performance to come through like that. And I think everyone in the Supersport paddock, a little bit like when Rafa de Rosa won his race, everyone delighted for him to be able to get that one across the line. And you saw that with the reaction as he was coming down pit lane as well and down victory lane. But when you look at, for France, with all the success they've had, it's nice to see a new name added to their list as well. It's been a while since Jules Cluzel's last win.
Yes, Jules Cluzel, obviously the most notable Supersport race winner. We had Andy Verdoya as well in unusual circumstances. This was obviously a completely dry win and undoubtedly a performance win for Valentin Debise, because he had to beat the top 2 in the World Championship to get it.
Yeah, and there's no race wins given at World Championship level, particularly in the Supersport class now as well. It's really hard fought out there, and Debise, it's going to be key to see what he does tomorrow as well now, because that's the monkey off his back. He knows that he's had opportunities to challenge for race wins. This is the first time, though, he's really been in that fight all the way through to the end, with that opportunity to get it across the line. He had to defend, and he was able to do that.
Yeah, there's been times where he's been one of the riders in the group, but this is the first time he's actually been able to control a race where he's been the favourite almost.
Yeah.
And he didn't let the opportunity slip. So fair play to Valentin Debise. Just want to make a quick mention of the World Championship situation. Stefano Manzi, 65 points his advantage over Chan Onchu. So 4 pulled back by Onchu, with 2nd place with 3rd for Manzi. Importantly, in the battle for 3rd position overall, Tom Booth Amos starting down on the 4th row of the grid and then serving a penalty, only comes home in 15th position, so adds just 1 point to his tally. But Jaume Macià, not fully capitalising, gets through for 6th in the end. I think that's a good damage limitation ride for Jaume Macià, considering we'd seen him a little bit further down the order and embattled in the early stages. So he's now 7 points away from Tom Booth Amos. We saw Bo Benschneider retiring to the pits. He fails to score. And now Luca Myers is only 4 points behind Benschneider for 5th overall in the World Championship. So the gap closes in the battle for bronze, and a costly race 1 for Tom Booth Amos. Yeah,
and for Booth Amos, that penalty and just the problems of over the weekend are compounded by the fact that he didn't have one of those 9 fastest laps as well, so it's going to be tough tomorrow as well.
Neither did Jaume Macià, so that will be some boost at least for Tom Booth Amos on a difficult afternoon. Let's hear from our 1, 2, 3 then. Valentin Debise, Chan Onchu, and a first defeat in 3 rounds for Stefano Manzi.
Stefano, 3rd position today, solid points on the board, but just missing a little bit at the end to challenge at front 2. Talk us through it.
Yes, super to be on the podium here in Aragon. It's a demanding track for us. Yesterday we were struggling a lot, but the team worked very well and fixed the bike to improve today. And yes, in the beginning I was closing, so I was there, and I was thinking to be a bit calm because it's demanding track on the tire, on the rear tire. But in the end, I have nothing left. They ride better than me in the end, so I just have to be happy about this third place. But for sure, we work for tomorrow to improve. And yes, it's super to be on the podium.
Well done, great job.
Thank you, thank you.
Podium is as much or more than he needs for the World Championship. You know, he can throw 4 points at every race between now and the end of the season and still win comfortably. Beaten by Chan on Chu, that will be galling for Manzi. We know that because he was willing to throw everything at him for the last 2 rounds to take 4 wins in a row. That run comes to an end here.
Yeah, the one thing for Manzi and for Tenkate is how many times in recent years have we seen that Tenkate make that step forward from Saturday to Sunday. He'll definitely feel that this was a bit of a disappointment today, but that given the fact that he was suffering a little bit from tire wear, given the fact that we've got changes to the bikes, they'll now understand what to do. And maybe Onchu and the Evan Bros team just did a better job of figuring out what to do with those reps as well, and being able to get their gear ratios that perfect way for the change to the box.
Who certainly have a great record around this venue, the Evan Brothers team. It's in second place here today, despite the very, very best efforts of this man, Chan Onchu.
Dan, second position today after a great battle with Valentin. Talk us through this race and those final few laps.
Yes, I'm very happy because we work a lot and we try to get the results. For sure, we will work for tomorrow more and try to get the first position. But I'm very happy. I want to say thanks to Yamaha, thanks to my team and all the Canon Academy.
Great job, well done.
Thank you.
Second place for Chan Onchu today. That is now the 6th consecutive podium for Onchu, his personal best in the Supersport World Championship. Shows a good level of maturity in that scrap. He doesn't throw it away trying to get a win that was beyond him. He accepts the second position, even though there's a little bit of contact there on the final lap. I'd say Onchu's riding as well as ever.
Yeah, and for Chan, what we've seen once again this weekend is just that next step that he's been making all the way through the season. Magny would have been easy to be very disappointed with after losing those 2 races to Manzi on the last lap, but he's bounced back from it. He's come in here, and I think probably the most interesting thing was he changed his tactics all the way through that race. He tried to attack in different places.
But we've saved the best till last. For the first time, a race winner in the Supersport World Championship. Let's hear from Valentin de Bees.
Valentin, I think everybody liked that. A World Supersport race winner. How does that sound?
Yeah, it's great, and here it's almost my own track because that's the most close from my house. So it's always very fun. I have a lot of friends that come over, and it's always a great time for me anyway, out and in the track in this place. It's a place where I train also because, as I say, I'm close by. So I've been waiting for this victory for a long time, and I had so many third place, second place. I knew my time will come, and I saw in Manicourt I could have a go, but at the end we had too many problems. And very thank you for the team because they make an incredible job repairing all the problems we had, repairing the bike that I destroyed after crashing. So from the first lap, everything was great. So big heads up to them, and thank you also to all the sponsors from the team and mine.
Huge congratulations, well done.
Yeah, sounds like the emotion's getting better of him a little bit. The voice was starting to crack a little there. I'm sure it's going to be an emotional podium here for Valentin de Bees, and this is how he got the job done.
Yeah, and you can see here on the run through this corner, he has that bobble, and that's actually what wins him the race because it just forced Onchu to have to check that bike up as well. And then for de Bees, you're able to have that run through the last corner, and you can see what it means for his team as well. And I think for the Renzi Corsi team, it's worth noting just how significant this is. Last year they were here with Claudio Corsi, and they weren't able to get the results that they've had this year. They've been able to make the change to put de Bees on the bike, and they've been rewarded with it all season. He's up to 7th in the World Championship, and he's a race winner, and the team are a race winner as well.
Yeah, Simone Corsi scored 60 points. Valentin de Bees is now on 144, so yeah, it's been a massive signing for them.
Simone Corsi, indeed. I'm getting Claudio Corti and Simone Corsi confused, but for de Bees and for his team, such a massive moment, and you have to take your hats off to them because they've put the resources in and now they get that reward.
So here's a look at your grid, the top 9 positions, the front 3 rows for race 2 tomorrow. Philip Ertl will be your pole sitter. He had a good moment in that race. Ultimately goes under the radar, doesn't it? Because he comes home in 4th position, but one of his best rides, certainly, on the Ducati. Second place to Stefano Manzi on the grid for tomorrow. So a Yamaha back on the front row. Filippo Farioli. So again, 3 different manufacturers on the front row. Bo Benschneider then on row 2, and dramatically the MVs drop back early on, but Farioli hangs in there for 5th position. And then when you look at the other MVs, Benschneider ultimately retires from outside of the points. So decent job well done there by Farioli with 5th position.
Yeah, Farioli's actually been pretty impressive for the second half of this season. He's been able to make a good step forward and regularly been able to be one of the leading MV riders, and the gap between him and his teammate has been pretty significant at times through the second half of this season. And Benschneider came in as the expected championship contender for MV Augusta, and Farioli's been able to surprise him on a few occasions.
Yeah, just to run you through the rest of that grid then. Second row, as I said, Benschneider for De Bees, your race winner. Set his personal best lap on lap 13. So he'll be on the middle of the second row of the grid. Alongside him, Mattia Casadei. And then row 3 for Chanon Chu, Xavi Cardelus and Luca Myers. Important riders missing out on the top 9. Alberto Sura, 10th fastest in the fastest lap times. And so having started in 20th position, he's going to find himself with a lot of work to do once again. Likewise, Roberto Garcia, outside of those top 9 positions, originally started in 12th. And then big names in the context of the championship for the battle for 3rd and 4th in the world. Jaume Macià started 8th, eventually comes home 12th fastest on the fastest laps. And Tom Booth Amos, who was 10th, fails to improve into the top 9. He sets the 14th fastest time. So they'll be coming back from the 4th row of the grids and renewing their rivalry for 3rd in the World Championship with only 7 points between them. Let's take you through the numbers then on the podium. And first up with 3rd position, it's Stefano Manzi from 7th place on the grid, remember. Didn't take too long for them to shake clear of the majority of the pack, those 2 Yamahas. It is podium number 56 for Stefano Manzi. His wait for a 20th victory will continue until at least tomorrow. Second place for Chanon Chu, nearly there, nearly. Podium number 27, 6 in a row, his personal best. But your race winner, the first time in the Supersport World Championship, is Valentin De Bees. Podium number 12, win number 1. And what a special moment this is for him, and in particularly for the Renzi Corsa team. Stefano Renzi himself, the team manager, stepping up onto the podium to congratulate his man Valentin De Bees. Masterstroke of a signing, and a big breath as well from Stefano as he celebrates with Valentin De Bees. It's just about time to hear the Marseillaise, the French national anthem, for your first-time race winner, Valentin De Bees. So Valentin De Bees, a race winner at last in Supersport. And can he now go and do the job again tomorrow? Certainly got the pace on the evidence of today. Those Yamahas should come back stronger for race 2, Eudantis.
Yeah, you'd imagine that they'll learn quite a bit from it and be able to give themselves the chance to be able to make that improvement and really go with them once again tomorrow. But the day belongs to De Bees, and we'll obviously think about tomorrow's race as the day goes on. But right now, for Valentin, this is about enjoying this occasion.
Special moment for Valentin De Bees, Chanon Chu and Stefano Manzi, familiar podium finishers. But first opportunity to celebrate like this for Valentin De Bees. He'll be back to do it all over again, as will the rest of the Supersport riders. Still a World Championship to settle. Remember, 65 points the gap between Manzi and Onchu. 7 points the gap between Buthemos and Masia in the battle for bronze. Valentin Debise at last in his 89th Supersport start is a race winner. 0.2 of a second his margin over Chan Onchu. It felt a lot closer than that for much of that race. Stefano Manzi third, loses 4 points in the World Championship to Chan Onchu, but far from disastrous. He only needs podiums for the rest of the season to be world champion. Single point for Tom Buthemos in P15. Jaume Masia with 10 points in 6th. He opens that gap. So he narrows the gap, I should say, to 7 points. Here's a more detailed look at that World Championship. Valentin Debise's race victory moves him up to 7th overall. Remember, he finished 4th in the World Championship last season. I think he'd give up that ranking overall for the first race victory that he has managed here today. Still 30 points behind Luca Myers, 6th overall. Myers 4 down on Bo Benschneider now. Benschneider retiring with 2 laps to go. Luca Myers coming home in a solid but unspectacular 8th place. Alberto Sura picking up more points, coming through into 9th with Jeremy Alcoba starting on the front row, ultimately coming home in only 10th and sets the 16th fastest lap of that race. So he will drop back dramatically from the front row to the already confirmed manufacturers world champions. But a rare defeat for Yamaha, the first time we've had a winner other than Stefano Manzi and Chan Onchu. It's, Jaume Masia all the way back in race 1 in Most. A surprise victory for Valentin Debise, the first race action of the weekend complete. And they'll be back to do it all over again at the same time tomorrow for race 2. Stand by for the first of 3 Superbike races this weekend. Meanwhile, after the break.